As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture those stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. Joe is a dedicated family man. He enjoys his role as a father, husband, son, brother, and honorable friend. He is the operational engine behind GetClients.com in his role as COO, and also is the founder of Operational Warfare and the co-creator of Modern Body. His early experience spans 15 years in the restaurant business, where he's led teams of 60 to 80 people and managed operations from 3 to 4 million in revenue to overseeing productivity for a 189-unit brand doing 600 million AR. His innovative strategies led to achieving adjusted operating savings of 10 million in 2019. After a decade with an incredible company, he was laid off. Joe embraced the entrepreneurial spirit, diving headfirst into the world of internet marketing in 2020. As a certified ontological coach, his expertise lies in organizational leadership, C-suite communication, emotional intelligence, and somatic dispositions. With a passion for operations, leadership, hiring and training, and systems and processes, Joe has consistently delivered success in these domains to match his passion. Embodying the traits of an ENTJ and a Type 8 on the Enneagram, Joe thrives on meaningful interactions. His favorite thing to do is have a great conversation. So, Joe, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really, really appreciate you being here, man.
My pleasure, man. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So I know we met years back. You were a coach for the Successful Male, and I just really vibed with what you were doing. You've had a massive impact on my life, and so I really wanted to have you on the show to be able to kind of impart some of that wisdom and show some of the cool stuff you're working on, man. What you're doing now. So, yeah, what have you been up to?
Yeah, so a lot has changed, since you and I got together and had tons and tons of development, tons and tons of growth, and definitely some breakthrough results in your life as well as my life. So really, in the simplest way possible, I can say is, my business has moved into more of an integrator operations executive type role for the internet marketing industry, right? So like all of those things that you and I were discussing and going over through in the professional domain in terms of like getting ourselves out there and marketing and sales and all those things. One of the big holes that I found in the entrepreneurial space is just a total lack of integrators. Like there's tons of visionaries, there's tons of people with great ideas, and there's very little amount of people that are the bridge between that vision to execution to bring it to life. So I've really placed myself in a position where I can be doing this with some really high level guys, scaled a couple of businesses to 8 figures in the time since we've met, and even started a business, as you know, with my wife, and we're growing and scaling that, right? So lots going on, but definitely finding a focus in the sense of taking all of my 15 years of restaurant operations and corporate leadership experience and infusing those systems, processes, operations, and leadership into the internet marketing industry and online business space.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I've seen it so often where you have visionaries who have these awesome ideas. It just, there's a lot of them and maybe not the best, they have these million great ideas. And sometimes we just, as a visionary, sometimes we just need an integrator to step in and go, that's absolutely awesome. Which 2 of those are you going to focus on now?
Yeah. Or we're going to say, hey, man, we're not doing any of that. I need you to focus on these other 2 things that we already agreed upon, and you need to settle down.
Sort of like managing ADHD is really what it is. I think that's as entrepreneurs, that's one of our superpowers is ADHD, is we're all kind of in 16 million directions at once. But it also, when not well managed, without having a strong implementer, that can be disastrous.
Yeah, it's so true. And one of the things that I've discovered just from, studying Gino Wickman's work, I think we've talked about EOS before, and that book, Rocket Fuel, I'm the rare one, right? Like the integrator is the rare one. And then even harder than that is finding an integrator visionary combo that fits. So it's like, okay, Andrew, great. you have all these ideas and you want to bring them to life, and then you're all excited because you find this ops person, you find this integrator, and you're off to the races. But then ultimately you discover in 6 months to a year it's not a fit. Like, you aren't be able to build that strong relationship between the two of you in order to generate the results that you both want, right? So there's also the added pressure of finding a cultural fit and consciousness fit between the visionary and integrators, not just like plug and play. So you have a challenge of finding them. And then you also have a challenge of, is it a good fit for you? And, I've been blessed that I've had a couple of good fits. Some of them didn't end up working out. But still, again, we're friends and great connections. But then, the one I'm in now is like, it's literally like rocket fuel. It's like two arms to the same body, like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. You know what I mean? That's what it's, so it's cool, man. It's really fun and exciting.
No, how would so as a visionary, and I think that a lot of visionaries would have this problem. So I want to ask about it. It is, I heard somebody years ago say, it was actually Carlos Reyes that said this. He had just gotten out of like a 3-hour meeting with his business partners and going, it's like being married. Sometimes it's like a marriage where there's this sort of interpersonal thing that happens where you've got two people who are very passionate. What specific things do you look for? Like, if I'm a visionary, and we're kind of checking each other out, we're kind of in the dating period, kind of seeing what's going on, seeing if we want to do this. What specific things what words of wisdom would you have for that visionary going, what do you want to look for?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would start with so I always break things down in terms of organizational leadership core competencies, right? You have technical, functional, relational, emotional, and conversational. And visionaries are a great job most of the time at understanding and hiring for the technical and functional, right? It's like, can you do the job? Great. Can you do the job really fast as I do it? Yes. Awesome. You're even better, right? And then it's like, but all of the other stuff we're going to leave till the end, right? And then the problem is that when we remove people or terminate people from our business, quite often it's not due to technical or functional. It's like, oh, they're not a good fit, or they're emotional mess, or their behavior's off, or whatever, right? So what I always tell everyone when they're assessing talent, especially someone at such a high responsibility that they're going to be running your day-to-day business, you might want to like that person, meaning that you need to, right, have an emotional relationship, emotional connection. You have to have a relationship with them, and you need to be able to have great back and forth conversation. If you wouldn't go out to dinner with that person in your free time, it might not be a great fit. And again, it's not going to be like that in the beginning. We know it's going to be uncomfortable. There's the feeling out phase. So to start, in the most practical sense, Andrew, you need to start with, what are the core values of you for your life that you have that are most important to you, you're unwavering on those? What are the core values within your business? And does this person that you are bringing into the business and you're interviewing and, like you said, dating, do they align with those? Do they align with those from what you can see in their behavior? Did you have open conversations with them in regards to those and how they feel about those values and what's most important to you, right? Do you share with them that maybe sometimes you can be a bit of an ass in this area, or you overreact here, or you're super unreasonable in this area? There's going to be some sort of glaring defects that visionaries, well, all humans have, but that visionaries know they have. And you need to gauge the response of the person, that they understand that this is a part of a makeup of that you have. And, again, because most of the most brilliant people that have the best ideas are a little bit mad, we say, right? They're a little bit off, right? So you just have to find a good fit for your level of off, right? And when
Okay.
you find that fit, right, then it's fantastic. And so it happens through conversations around expectations. It happens around conversations around openness, and it happens through conversations around trust, right? Because that's ultimately the foundational principle of this relationship, because you're handing the keys essentially to the castle of saying, hey, you're now going to be running the team. You're now going to be making decisions. You're probably going to be running the finances, because I haven't met one visionary that loves doing accounting or bookkeeping, right? And so have these conversations, as uncomfortable as they are, before you marry the person. You wouldn't just go to the altar and marry your wife that's eventually going to get half your shit if you don't get to know her first. This isn't, this isn't 1300. There's no dowries and properties involved and all that. We're talking about your blood, sweat, and tears, your little baby, your business, and you're sharing this with somebody for good reason. Because then if it works out, and they are a good fit, it frees you up to do what you want to do, what you love to do, what your passions are, and you'll have a huge, way bigger impact in your business. And if you have a team, they'll probably be happy that you're not running the day to day and they don't have to deal with you as much anymore.
So true. And it's funny. I've worked with some amazing visionaries without implementers, and I've seen how it goes wrong. However, with the whole, bookkeeping, accounting thing, I feel both judged and understood at the same time, because I'm terrible with that, because I'm a visionary. We're awful at that. That's boring. I don't want to deal with that. I want to go do some cool shit with my friends. And I think keeping a visionary in their zone of genius, where they're really, really good at it, is important. And I think that's why, like you were saying, there's not enough implementers in the world to really help. Because if you have a vision, at least from what I found, if you have a visionary without an implementer, it's sort of like an airplane with only one jet. You're just going around circles. There's not, you might get somewhere, but it's not going to be as good. You're not going to get as many results as you wanted out of it, right? Yeah. So now, the background that I always have, and part of the show is that I want to hear the story behind how you got started with this. You kind of alluded to it a little bit at the beginning about working in the restaurant industry, and I know I've heard your story, but how did you fall into this?
Into what, the online space, or just being an operations exec in general? And
Operations, like what backstory? What led you to that ninja skill?
yeah, that Andrew right there ties to what you and I have done, right? Because we've both done Ron Maholtra's program, The Success Blueprint, and there's very deep in inner work questions that you have to go there. And one of them is zone of genius, zone of greatness, right? Like what are you great at that everyone else struggles with? And it's super easy for you, right? Like what feels like play to you, and everyone else it feels like grueling work. And so I love marketing. I love copywriting. Okay. I love advertising, and I'm super passionate about it. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to do. And then it was like, well, my brain doesn't work like people who are genius marketers work. My brain works in the sense of my zone of genius is leadership. So conflict resolution conversations, I'm great at. Visionaries hate that, right? Confrontation, I love confrontation. 99% of the planet hates it, right? So it's like, wait, this is, because all it is to me is a very like powerful conversation that's deeply meaningful. But most people don't like to get uncomfortable. But I love being uncomfortable, because I'm just so used to being comfortable and being uncomfortable, if that makes sense, right? Just, and then in terms of systems and processes and boiling things down in a simplistic approach in our business and in life to be super and highly productive. And I honed those skills in the restaurant business. There's no business harder on the planet to run than that, right? So again, I had to get very honest with myself about, okay, what are you a genius at, and what are your gifts, and less about what are you most passionate about, right? I don't necessarily have to be passionate. I don't necessarily have to be passionate about something to make money in it, right? Equally enough, you can over time when you're doing something a lot that you're really good at, and you meet other people that see you as an expert in that, and they look to you, and you're talking higher level people in other domains of business, and they come to you, that feels great, right? Like, I'm passionate about being useful. I'm passionate about making contributions and impact in people's lives. And ultimately, I am passionate about people's development overall. If you know that, if you're around me, you're going to want to be better, right? And that's what leadership is. So, of course, I have to live and breathe in that. And then again, since what I'm doing is in my gifts, energetically, it's not some huge strain on my day to day life. So, all those things I am passionate about, I can do in my spare time. And I'm not like, oh, I'm like limping into after work hours because it was just so grueling and so heavy. I'm not saying I don't have rough days, but like the day to day stuff, that all of you visionaries hate is super easy and not weighing on my energy daily. Like I'm like this in a P&L. I'm like, ooh, the P&L is coming from the bookkeeper soon. I can't wait to dig in and figure everything out, and then give it to give it to the CEO and all that stuff. And like other people are like, dude, what's wrong with you? Right. So it was through discovery, it was through asking myself powerful questions that go inward, through discovery and getting honest with myself, and then going really hard on those things, leaning into them, and then looking for ways to be a service to others in order to bring that stuff to life.
I refer to P&Ls as pain and loathing because it's about how much I like them. It's funny because I have a business degree too, and I can act as an implementer when I have to, but it is very much not my zone. I don't like it. Yes, I get it. Yep. So it kind of shows that, and I guess so. One of the things, because visionaries, I think a lot of visionaries, just we can all be very ADHD and kind of go off in our own direction and shiny objects. But sometimes we're blind to the need for an implementer because that's not fun for us. We're not good at it. It's not something we want to deal with. Explain like a moment. Take me to a moment when, and it could be either a specific visionary or make up a story or just kind of we're going to get to the end goal here. But as a visionary, what should I be looking for when it's like, I may need to bring in an implementer right now? What does that moment look like? What's that, or even a story about somebody that you were able to really help who just needed an implementer?
Yeah, absolutely. I would always tell everyone, first of all, as soon as you can afford it, even, excuse me, the very first people very first person I tell most people to hire is a personal assistant or a virtual assistant, right? Just taking all of those little splinters off your plate, right? That's a good thing. In terms of like a higher level, like let's say operations manager, unless you're doing high seven figures or eight figures, you don't really need like a COO exec level, like my level, because it's going to cost a lot of money. Let's be very clear, right? You're talking inflated salary, you're talking profit sharing or some sort of equity deal for the growth of the company. So again, if you're just looking for a great operations manager, you could be doing high six figures, seven figures, right? You could easily get a project manager for you, or like a part-time fractional project manager to take some things off your plate. If you're doing a couple 100K a year, it easily, because then you could leverage that time that it saves you to generate more sales and more offers, right? To launch and compound and make money. So it's really about being honest where you're at and understanding too that, okay, how much is this going to cost me if I don't get this person to come and help me out? It's like, okay, if I had 20 more hours a week to work on ideas, market and sell my offers I'm currently doing, build relationships, and drive more sales. In my mind, how much more money could I make if I had that time, right? So we're saying 80 to 100 hours extra a month. Because let's just start with the part-time ops manager or project manager that you can get at a decent wage, and it won't break your bank, but you can scale up from there, right? Okay. Figure out what that's costing you, right? By not being able to do that. And then say, okay, so then look at what you can afford, right? And put that somewhere in the middle of where you need to be, right? Because you also, just like we talk about in sales, when people are buying our offers, right? Like they hire Andrew. Well, it's making me a little bit uncomfortable spending this much money on you, Andrew. And your response most of the time is, yeah, most of the time when we make a financial decision of this magnitude that equates to this much growth, it's not going to be comfortable, right? But you and I know from spending so much money on ourselves that something subconsciously happens to us when we invest in ourselves that way, right? So, like Joe Dispenza says, an investment in ourselves is an investment in our future. Well, I'm here to say an investment in your team is an investment in your business's future, right? Now, let's take it to the next level. So I gave you the formula of like, okay, weigh out the opportunity cost of not making the decision, right? And what it's costing you in your business, coupled with what you can afford and determining what you were willing to spend that's comfortable, not uncomfortable, and like, let's move forward. Then the second biggest thing is the challenge, the ultimate challenge, hiring. Hiring. So many people are terrible at hiring. Most people are terrible at hiring. And the reason is that they just haven't done it enough. You're probably somebody that's like, well, damn, I've never hired an ops person. I don't even know what questions to ask them. Like you're saying, I don't even know where to start. So now it's like, I don't know what I really need with this position. I haven't had tons and tons of practice hiring, training, and developing people. And now I'm supposed to hire my number two to come in and take in this important role. That's a lot of pressure on a business owner because, you didn't have enough already running a business day to day, right? So what do we do? Well, I tell everyone the same thing, right? What's the number one principle to scale, according to Vern Harnish and Scaling Up? People. If that's the number one ingredient that we need to scale our business, should we or should we not invest some education, learning, and practice into that field? Of course we should, but we don't. We don't have time. We don't have this. It's not fun. It's not that, right? But if we look at it and say, well, I'm about to give this person money out of my business, like I'm working hard for this money, and I'm not going to do everything in my power to set myself up for success to bring them in here. Because it's already hard enough finding the right people, finding good people, right? Here's the difference. And this is what I tell everybody. You may have to go through some bad apples and learn some troubled mistakes, and it's going to cost you money. But ultimately, you will find your Tom Brady. They'll fly down from Boston to sunny Tampa Bay here with me. They'll join the team, infect everybody on your team, and you're going to win a Super Bowl. That's the power that one person, one good person in your business can have, right? Conversely, they could be that flamboyant wide receiver that's a diva in the locker room and just destroys everyone as well. That's why it's so important in terms of talent selection and hiring, right? But I hope that answers your question. Long-winded answer, but
it's all good, but I think it's really good information as well, because as visionaries, again, we are not good at hiring at all. And I think it really gives some light to some of the benefits for getting someone, and when the appropriate point is. Because I think as entrepreneurs, we all start out as a solopreneur. It's like, what is your title? Yes, all the things, and then it's when do you get that point when it's like, I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to get something else. So awesome, man. So we're wrapping things up a little bit. I want to go in. There's always a question I ask to everyone in the podcast, and that is, what is a book or a podcast that has significantly impacted your life, whether recently or one you read a while ago or whatever it happens to be? What's one?
Just one.
Just one.
Not all these on my bookshelf. Okay.
Not the 6 million that we've all read. Yeah.
Yeah.
But was there one podcast or one thing that really just was like an aha moment?
Yeah. I will go business here, right? Keep it applicable to what we're talking about. Cause there's just so many domains of stuff that I've read. Something that I've picked up time and time again is The Hard Things About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. And the reason why I say that is, number one, if you're in a startup and you're in the entrepreneurial environment, like, he has all that experience with that, because him and Andreessen are running one of the best VC firms in the world right now. And, he took 2 companies public during the dot-com boom. Okay. So he talks about the real shit, bro. This isn't like fluff and all that. Like, he's talking about like really the hard stuff that we go through as business owners in terms of growing and scaling a business and all that. And then he gives practical solutions that you can apply from his experience in each chapter to generate results. So I love that. I love a great story. I love something that's deeply infused in a topic that relates to me. And I love practical application of principles. And he kills all 3 of them. It's an easy read. I've read it twice, and you can just blaze right through it. I also like the fact that he starts every chapter with a hip hop quote. That's also like, something special for me. I'm a hip hop head. So I'm like, yo, Ben, what's up, man? I know you're out there dropping some Eazy-E lines somewhere, like.
I love it. Yeah, it's such a good book. It's one of those books that I'll go through and reread again, just because a mentor of mine years ago said there's opinion versus counsel. And so everyone has an opinion. Everyone has an idea what's going on. And some people are quite good. Some of these opinions are good, but they haven't been through it. It's the counsel that I want. I've done this. I've screwed it up. And now I'm going to show you how not to do that again. And I guess that's something that's super powerful. So really good friend of mine says, another word for mistake is learn. Yeah. And I don't want somebody that's been through it. I don't want somebody that's like been through all of this stuff and it's been really happy for them. No, dude, I want somebody that's seen some shit, because they're the ones that can learn the most from. So Anyway, man, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really, really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, my pleasure, Andrew, always.
Thanks, man. Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Joe, check out the link in the description.